Carl. I'm Carl Rabun,
And I am Tiffany Salcido.
and we are in 2025. We are in the groove of 2025. It is alive, and that's an old short circuit reference. If anybody remembers,
I
are
remember
you old
that.
enough? Oh,
I do
wow.
know
Okay.
Short Circuit. Johnny
Wow.
Five is alive.
Wow. Yeah, no disassemble, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my feeling right now. No disassemble. Don't disassemble me and my, what I believe in and what I love and my country and all those other things. No disassemble, right? Let's keep it together. But
Yeah. Don't disassemble TikTok, please. Let me have my one source of joy, please.
that's funny. So how's your how's your traveling been? Where have you gone? What fun places have you experienced?
I was up in this week up in Monterey and Visalia,
Ooh,
and I love going up to Monterey. I usually stay in Marina, even though it's like further out from like where I work. It's just a more calm area. I mean, I can't even really say I got to spend a lot of time there because I drove there and then I was there, I slept, I went to work and I left. And so I really didn't get to like go out on the town and do much. But I really like the little town of Marina. And if I could live in Monterey County, I do like it a lot. But Sand City is my favorite place in Monterey. I love Sand City. I don't know what it is about it, but it's my favorite thing. And then in Visalia, same thing. I was just there for short term. I drove from Monterey to there after doing a class and some coaching, and then um, we were there. And again, worked, came home, but coming home was the hard part because we have the winds down here in Southern California and all the fires and stuff. And so um, there was a lot of detours and getting, normally we go through Pasadena, but the fires were in Altadena and that was a no-go. The 210 was shut down in certain areas. And so we had to go through Burbank and um, the smell of fire. Like if you haven't been in a fire area, it's devastating. Every time it just makes me sad every single time. It's not the same as a campfire. It's not the same as like a bonfire in your backyard. Like the smell of wildfire where like it's burning houses down and stuff is something.
yeah.
It's
It's
just
it's not
sad.
natural. It's not
It's
just
not.
wood, right? It's chemicals and
Right.
fixtures
Right.
and sometimes
So
bodies and yeah, I mean it's
yeah.
just yeah.
So that was pretty devastating. And then we did get home. Luckily, again, there were some areas where it was really, really windy. And so, like, traffic was a little chaotic because you were literally getting pushed out of the roads. And so we had to be really careful not to, like, be next to anybody. And if I saw uh, a semi, I'm like far, far away from the semis because some semis were getting actually blown over. Like, there were some
Hmm.
spots on the grapevine where, semis actually got blown over because the winds were so strong. So when we finally did get home, the the inside of the house, because I had left a few of my windows cracked, just covered in dust and soot. And we don't even have any fires like anywhere around where I live in the sense that I don't we don't have like a lot of I mean we don't have any fire. Nothing's on fire here in the Inland Empire, but the winds were so strong it was blowing it from like LA. And so again, we had ashes all over the inside of the house. I'd rather have ashes inside of the house than my house be ashes. So again, I'm like, it's not a complaining, it's gratitude. Like I'm very grateful I have the opportunity to just clean it up and things are normal. But I definitely, my heart goes out to all of the people who are suffering right now and being displaced and the animals and it's just catastrophic. So
Yeah.
catastrophic. It makes me so sad. I hate fire season. It's like one of those things you in California, you know it's coming, but it doesn't make it any easier no matter what, how many
Yeah.
times you go through it. Devastating.
Yeah. My daughter's grandparents had to be evacuated from where they live. They live in Monrovia and they live up in the foothills in Monrovia.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at the evacuation map and the breadth of the fire and it's kind of surrounding their little neighborhood. And so it was I mean and not far away there's the map has a pink, evacuation warning and the next block down is the park that my daughter grew up playing in when she'd go visit her grandparents, right? So which is like 2 blocks away from their house. So it's definitely something we've been paying attention to as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, I hear, and then yeah, when the Paradise fires hit and all the fires we're having up near Chico and everything, how it affects people's breathing and just even people who've lost everything and those folks
Yeah.
and then everyone else around. I mean, we're 50 miles away from where the nearest fire was, and I mean that it was a constant reminder what we were breathing in, what we were looking at, what the sun looked like. That
Yeah.
there are people who are really suffering. So our definite thoughts and are out there with y'all, and go Cal Fire. That's all I can say. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
it's not just cow fires out there. We have, even though there's been so much rhetoric with like Mexico, there's
Hmm.
Mexican fire.
Yeah.
Tijuana, by the way, is also on fire right now. But, Mexico has sent over some fire brigades to help support. I mean, we're getting support from Nevada, lots of other places. They have prisoners. There's hundreds of prisoner firefighters out there who are doing this for, pennies on the dollar, pennies, period, that are helping save lives. And, at the end of their day of, trying to maintain life and all of the things that they're working towards, they get to go back to their cells and finish
Hmm.
their sentences, which,
And
that's
continue to
another
be judged
complicated.
as
Yeah, it's another
as less than human. Yeah. So yeah, I hear you.
yeah, so that's another complicated situation. But I mean, there's a lot of help out there, and I always want to celebrate the helpers. And again, it's devastating. It's nature, not politics. It's nature. This is, again, we're in a fire country. But
Yeah.
anyways, me and Carl talked before the podcast because I had to get a lot of feelings out around all of this. But it just, again, my heart goes out to anybody who's affected by the fires. And again, much love to all of the people from all of the different places that are out there trying to make, this fire go away in really tough conditions. Really, the wind here has been horrific. Today is not so bad. Today actually is the first day that we don't have winds that are just whipping around. So hopefully that helps get this thing under control.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and a
What
lot of
about you,
people.
Carl? I was saying I'm
Well,
all
yeah.
devastated.
Well, a lot of people they think of fire and foresting areas, but LA has a lot of forested areas. When I moved down to LA in 1993, and like within like the first 2 months I was there, Eden Canyon was on fire. So Pasadena, above Altadena was on fire and burning down Mount Wilson and everything else around it. And then, I mean, in the Montrose area, I mean, I remember my dad and I sitting there ready we hosed down our roof because you could see the orange glow above his house where he lived in Burbank. And, we were ready if it came down the mountain, but, it was scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, I was in Fresno
Mhm.
this week, and so I was there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and got to work with my peeps in Fresno Department of Social Services. The supervisors were doing their supervisor training, and I have my Fresno routine down, and I know the hotel I'm stay at, where I'm going to get my DoorDash, where I'm going for lunch. Right, I got to hang out with a mutual friend of ours, Lamar Henderson, and we co-teach co-taught this week, which was pretty cool. And so yeah, I mean, it was a good week, and I mean, it was a good week for me, with
Yeah.
everything else in context, what's happening in our world, in our society, and in
Yeah.
our state, right? But so I have a question for you, Tiff.
All right. I'm ready for it.
Okay, so the question I'm going to ask is, what is a skill you learned when you were young that you still use today?
Ooh. Um, I am gonna say wholeheartedly with my whole chest, the skill I learned as a child that I still use is to make friends, to connect with people. I think I shared on a podcast before. I went to a lot of different schools in my childhood. Like before even like middle school, I had been to 12 different schools. And so I was always the new kid in class. And I learned to connect with people very, very quickly, like almost as a survival mechanism, right? You don't want to be the random, uh, nobody knows you, nobody talks to you kid. So I would make friends very, very quickly. And I think I have the ability to do that. I'm not a shy person for the most part. And
Right.
so, in a room full of strangers, I will come up and talk to you like we've known each other forever, and really hotwire connection with people in a genuine way. Like I'm very interested in people. It's not superficial and it's not um, political. You know how you gotta play politics and know people. Like I really am genuinely interested in other people, and I really enjoy friendly banter and connecting with people. So that is a skill because I am very willing to be vulnerable and be a moron and an idiot and come up and talk to you. Like, some people are like, I'm not interested, and I leave them alone, right? So I can really read like people's body language, but I think that's something that in my life has been very, very helpful to doing the work that I do because I can connect with clients, I connect with customers, I connect with leaders, like I can connect with people, and that's something that to me is a superpower.
Very cool.
What about
Very
you, Carl?
well. So in thinking about, I don't, I'm not even, I don't know if it's a skill per se. I think it, but it might be. But I really learned how to think about others, right? And to
Mm-hmm.
have a mindset of how are other people feeling. I'm pretty sure it's part of my personality, but I remember, doing a lot of I my grandma, I was my mom, she was a single mom since I was 3 years old. And so my primary childcare provider for a lot of it while my mom was working was my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when I was little, she would pick me up from school and then she would take me to one of her jobs. My grandma worked a bunch of different nonprofit jobs and recycling plants, and she managed recycling plants and things like that. And I grew up in I grew up at cardboard trash compactors playing in the cardboard, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
and all the other stuff that they do, and going in and with her big blue van and big blue like a huge truck. I mean, like one of those big van trucks, right? And where she would pick up, cardboard and other paper products and load it up in the van. And then at the end of that, she we would go to St. Anthony's Dining Hall, feed the homeless. And so she was always somebody who was thinking about other people, and it was something that really, stuck with me. It was just that idea of how are other people feeling. It's important to know how you're feeling, but also it's just as important to know that the person that you're interacting with, is feeling in a particular way so that you can connect with them better. So I think that's something that is, something that has really served me well, in our profession, right? And in just
Mm-hmm.
the ability to live a decent life, right? So I always tell my daughter, I said, good things happen to good people. So if you treat people well more often than not, you'll get the benefit of the doubt from them, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be shysters out there, but you know, people in the world can be shady. But it's just like I tell workers, right? What's the percentage of your clients that are trying to get over on the system,
Yeah.
right? And what is it, maybe 5%, right?
Right.
Less, maybe a little more, whatever that's. So, the other 85, 90, 95% of your clients are going to get the treatment that you give those 5% because you don't want to get, you know, um, hustled or, anything else like that. But just think about where people are coming from and what they're dealing with and what's in their lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we see poverty, and Lamar was asking that question, he said, um, and so our friend Lamar, he going through a personal thing and with his family, and so he's been in a cancer treatment center for the last 4 years with a family member. And he said, I noticed, actually it's the City of Hope, which is in Duarte, which is in near the evacuation area, right? Which is scary. Um, but he said, why don't, he said, what I recognize is their level of service of other people. He said it's phenomenal. It's otherworldly, right? And why aren't why aren't other services like that? Why aren't human services that we live and work in, why do they not have the same level of care for the people that they are serving as a medical facility like the City of Hope, which is, you know, I mean, you know, funded and sometimes underpaid, but they're all on the same mission to cure cancer and to help people on it. And it just really got us thinking about it. And I said, well, it is the same mission. I mean, the Health and Human Services Department, CDSS, is in there just as much as, the Department of State Hospitals, right? So, I mean, we have it's in the same ballpark, but curing cancer is something that, or fighting cancer is something that people can do, but fighting poverty is hard because of these mindsets and these ideas that people have about those folks who are in poverty. If we saw poverty as an epidemic the same way we saw cancer as an epidemic, you know, how
Yeah.
would our society and our community improve? Right. And so it's really, it's one of those conversations that we have that, maybe we think about and maybe other people haven't necessarily had that conversation. We were talking, we did the 2 day class was on diversity and inclusion and belonging. And one of the people in the class said, I've never thought about this stuff. Never thought about it. I've just always thought about how I felt. And I've never really thought about how the person on the other side of the table feels, and where their context is and who they are and how maybe culturally they might be different or just how they were raised was different or their situation is different. I've never really thought about that. And but that's we've talked about that a lot.
Mhm.
That's our normal human condition. When it comes down to it, self-preservation is the first place we go, right?
Yeah.
And so we take things personally, right? When someone's yelling at us, why are they yelling at me? What did I do? It's nothing about what you did. It's about what are they going through, right? It's like trauma-informed services rather than what's happening. I mean, what's wrong with that person? What's happening with that person that's
Yeah.
making them, respond in that way? And so that's something I think, my grandma is really, just her influence was really influential in me having that thought process.
What you were saying right now, like the difference between how we treat cancer patients and how we treat people in poverty. I think part of the mindset too is that nobody would be like, well, you caused your own cancer, right? Like
Well,
cancer is something that happens, devastating that happens to you versus a lot of people think poverty is something that you do to yourself, right? Like, well, maybe if you worked harder or got a better education or whatever, like it's like a choice. And I'm not going to say that for some people poverty isn't a choice. I mean, there are some people who say this is works for me and I'm content here. And so, um, but it's again, we don't shame somebody in cancer treatment and say, well, these are your lifestyle choices, and so therefore we're going to let you suffer. The other part I think that's distinct is that the the people who treat people who in these cancer programs are seeing the suffering. They're watching the suffering. They're seeing like the things that people go through. They see their family members and the sadness that's connected to, again, someone potentially losing their life or recovering. Um, but in human services, we're not seeing that side of it. We're just getting that little piece of my benefits aren't here. I'm angry, or I'm scared, or I'm nervous, and it's the behavior that people pay attention to, not the emotion. And I think that's why this is such an important concept for people not to personalize suffering, right? If I'm suffering and if just like if I'm a nurse and or a cancer patient and I say I'm in pain, I'm suffering, the nurse is not going to say, well, what does that have to do with me? Why are you taking it out on me? No, they're going to do something to try to alleviate that pain because that's the right thing to do. And I think it's a huge mindset shift. And this is not to say that people in human services are not compassionate and caring and empathetic. There's a huge population of people who get into this work because they want to alleviate that suffering. But I think there's another subset of that group who lose that compassion and that empathy because of the system. When we can't forget at the end of the day that we are here to decrease suffering to humans, to people, and everybody's got a life story, and you just may not be aware of it. And it's honestly, it's not your place to judge either way.
Well, I think you
So,
said something right there. You said something that really rings true, about taking it personal, right? And that these folks are seeing nurses and doctors and other folks in the hospitals are seeing these people dealing with this suffering, right? And we don't go home with our clients,
right.
right?
You
They
shouldn't. That's an ethical violation if you do.
so
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
that's all right. No, 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 you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Mm,
And we've seen the detriment of that, right?
yeah,
Um, but that really is an important piece to think about, right? I mean, we don't go home with our clients, so we don't see what they're
right,
dealing with outside of the office. So when they come in and they're frazzled or they're upset or they're maybe a little demanding, right? Because 20 things have gone wrong, at home before they got here.
right,
And our first response is, why are they acting like that to me? Why are they treating me like that? As opposed to, wow, what's going on with this person? Because most people don't act like that to each other. They don't treat each other like that unless there's something going on. Right.
right.
So what is it that's going on with that other person? But that's an intentional shift. Our brain wants to say it's personal, right? And we've had a whole episode on that, right? But it really is true. But that made me think about that. Yeah, those folks who are working at City of Hope, home is that hospital bed or that um that
Hmm.
dialysis room for hours, right? Or spending weekends there or whatever it is that people do. That's their temporary home and their place where they rest. We don't do that with our clients. We don't, you know, once we see them, then maybe we'll see them next week or next month, or we'll talk to them
Yeah,
every 6 months with some of us, right? And
right.
other things like that. And maybe it's a 30-second, 45-second phone call. And it's just, so it's very impersonal, so working at City of Hope is probably extremely personal because you're working with these people on a regular, consistent, and formal and informal basis,
Hmm.
right? So
Yes.
that's that makes a lot of sense. When we were talking about it, I was just, it's the judgment. Absolutely. Well,
Yeah,
people make their own choices, right? And Lamar told me, I mean, with his family member, somebody, oh, she has cancer. Did she smoke?
right,
And he's like, no, she's never smoked. Oh, well. And then she asked something else, and then like a couple minutes later said, she didn't smoke. Like we put our heads into trying to find out what's wrong with this person. Why does this person have what they have? And that's how we problem solve, right? And that's how we connect. But where's the thought of, God, she has this. How is she feeling?
hmm. And how are you
Right?
feeling as someone who loves and cares and cherishes,
Yes.
you know? And
And
that
so,
and that's the other, yeah, for sure, for sure.
that's the, so I mean, well, if lung cancer, smoking is a choice. Well, I mean, but there's so many different cancers that have nothing to do. Well, it's about your personal choices. It's like I'm a type 2 diabetic, and a lot of people, well, I mean, you can control that. It's diet controlled. Sure, it's diet controlled, but you can go, here's the difference. Our blood sugars can be the same, and we both go to get a donut, and your blood sugar doesn't go here, maybe raises 20 points and mine raises 150.
Yeah.
Well, then, maybe you shouldn't have a donut. Okay. Well, maybe you
Maybe you
shouldn't
should
have
mind
that
your own
cigarette.
business.
Maybe
Maybe
you
you should
shouldn't
mind
have
your own
that.
business.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have that extra drink, right? Maybe you
Maybe,
shouldn't,
yeah.
yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't be an ugly person. Maybe you should do some self-reflection and figure out why you're a jerk and you don't have any friends. Maybe you should do that. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh
sassy
no.
today. I'm so tired of people.
But no, but
I'm
that but
tired of all these judgmental people. I'm just tired.
but that's the point. I mean, yeah, it's yeah, if I don't have that donut, then my sugar's not going to go up. But that's not a consideration you ever have to think about because,
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly. Exactly.
you
We're
can have
all,
that.
yeah,
Yeah. You can have those M&Ms at the movie theater and walk out no problem. I have those M&Ms,
yeah,
I'm sluggish, right? So I mean, just think that's not a consideration you have, right? And so thinking about where that other person is rather than trying to judge them as right or wrong, so is something we have to do intentional.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, I have a question for you. I just made it up in my mind. You ready?
All right. Cool.
If you were independently wealthy and you did not have to work for a living, you just had all the money you could ever need for all the stuff you could ever want, how would you spend your time?
If I was independently wealthy, I would travel. I would travel and see the world, experience things that I wanted to do, that I want, the people that are important to me to be able to do. And then also, you know, find a way to give back. How can I, I know that sounds like it's a canned answer, but it's not. I always say if when I hit retirement, I know exactly what I'm gonna do when I'm retired. I will not have a problem being retired, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've also, the older I get, the more I'm getting to that age where I have to start thinking about retirement. What is retirement going to look like? What is retirement going to be for me? And in what we do, it's so energizing, it's so fulfilling. It's such a connection to be in front of folks and to work for a common cause. I don't ever see myself retiring from that. I mean, maybe I won't be on the road, 69 days out of the year. Can I gripe real quick, Tiff?
Of course.
Do I have
Please,
so
this is the place.
so Holiday Inn, you people, you people.
You people at Holiday Inn.
I travel so much that I have platinum
Ooh,
status, right?
I just
And
became diamond. But go ahead, Miss. Go ahead, platinum. Go
so
ahead,
let's.
platinum.
Now I'm done. I'm good. I'm good. I don't need to talk to you. So, do you know I was one day away from diamond,
I'm so
and
sad for you.
one day, and because I thought it said, you have platinum status until December 31st, 2025. So I was like, okay, well, maybe it rolls over. So I had one day, and for New Year's Eve, my wife and I, we stayed at a hotel in downtown Sacramento, and I used my points because I was like, well, I don't have to pay for it. I just use my
Right,
points and get a free
right.
night. And then when I go to Fresno, that they no, it rolled over the calendar year. So if anybody's listening from IHG, could you hook a brother up? I want to park in those front parking spaces that says diamond status, right? Was it diamond elite? Yeah, I mean, I know I'm platinum elite, but that diamond elite, it's just the next level up. I mean, it's not a huge difference in amenities, but I
Status.
just I put in the work. I put in the work, and I'm loyal. I'm a
Hmm.
loyal sucker. So, just can a brother get a day? That's all I need. Just one day. Just one day. That's it.
What a
And
peasant.
so okay, so go ahead. Answer your question, Miss So and so. Yes.
Diamond Elite, thank you very much.
Shine bright like
Uh,
a diamond. Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
um, so I too would travel. I too would travel. That would be a number one priority. That's one of my favorite things is to explore. It's funny, I don't know if I told you this, but I'm on a travel restriction right now, because we moved to Mexico and my husband told me that for the next 2 years, we have to recover financially, which I don't know who put him in charge of making good decisions, but whatevs. Um, so, anyways, I he asked me the other day, like, what's going to be my first trip when we lift this self-imposed travel restriction, and Dominican Republic. I'm going to go to Dominican Republic.
Ooh,
So that's my plan right now. And so with that being said, in sense of what else would I do? Because traveling, like you can do it, but I too am with you in the sense that there's got to be something that I'm contributing to. So I would definitely keep doing this podcast. So
yeah.
this is something else. But one of the things I've always wanted to do, I just logistically have never been able to make it happen. I don't know if you know this about me, but I love breweries. Like I love breweries, and it's not just for the beer. I do like beer, but I like breweries. I like the vibe of breweries. I like the social spirit of breweries. I like usually food at breweries. Brewery food is usually like regular food but elevated. Like there's just something about like breweries that I really enjoy. So my first dream was going to be to open a brewery and have like I had a whole concept for that. But then I realized, yeah, no, I want to travel too much, so that's not going to work out. Like I can't be committed to one location. And then I started thinking about like you know how like different breweries have like trivia night or paint and sips and all this other stuff. I really, really wanted to, and maybe still do. I just again logistically I haven't made it work yet to do like an event at a brewery called a think and drink. And it really is where like people could go like happy hour, whatever, grab a beer, but do like a little bit of professional development in like a really relaxed environment. So like that's like my, I guess, MO when it comes to like training and development is like create a relaxed environment where people are having fun and they're learning stuff, but not in a you need to do this kind of way, but creating again community and all that stuff. And so I really, really would love if I had unlimited funds where I didn't have to work and I could be like, I can plan where I was going to be when I wanted to be there. I would definitely do a series of like think and drinks and it would be free. I wouldn't charge for it. It would, people could come and again, get some free training, some free development, um, in an environment where, we can connect and network and build community. So that'd be another big thing I would do. And maybe someday I will do that. Just today's not that day because I got to work too hard. And the last thing I would do if I was independently wealthy and I didn't have to work anymore is I would actually create, and I thought about this like a long time ago when I probably needed this. I would do like a charity, not I don't want to call it a charity. I would have an organization to help people who are leaving relationships that are starting all over again. So, like people who get divorced, people who have to leave a home with a partner, people who are leaving like their homes and their environment and having to like start all over because of the disillusionment of a relationship. To offer support to those people who are rebuilding their lives that may not have the financial ability or the familial support or that just need like help getting restarted, whether it be like a deposit for a new apartment or furniture or, dishes, whatever that looks like. I would love to be. And then, okay, hold on. And I have one more. The other one I would do, and I've always thought about it, and I hope that maybe someday I can make this happen. I also wanted to have like a mobile shower laundry trailer that could go to like homeless encampments and allow people to do their laundry and take a hot shower for free, where they can take care of their hygiene needs without any judgment and be able to um, have that available regularly. Where I would drive around in my shower laundry van and allow people who needed it to take again a hot shower and to be able to wash their clothes and their blankets or whatever else they needed with again free of charge. That's it. Good thing I just thought about this question because I probably have 700 more answers, but that's like the things that were probably highest priority for me.
And you can drive around in your van, and on the side you could have a little insignia that says Diamond Elite status, Diamond Elite
Exactly.
showers and laundry. That's what it could be. So
Exactly. Diamond Elite is going to be the name of that. Diamond Elite. So
that's right.
I don't
Diamond
know. I
Elite.
just I think about the shower and laundry thing came for me from having shower and laundry trauma. I like when I was a kid, we didn't always have access to like a washing machine, and I would wash like clothes in the sink and stuff like that. And that was like part of like the hard part of making friends at school. Look, I'm exposing all my trauma right now, but um, going to school, we were really poor, and again, sometimes I'm washing laundry in the sink with dish soap because that's what we would have, and um, it's hard to make friends when you again don't have clean clothes on, or it's hard to make friends when you haven't been able to wash your hair because you're out of shampoo. So like these are like things that I think about, like how do I give back to society? Like the power of a hot shower like fixes every, I don't know, for me a hot
Mhm.
shower can change everything in life. Or a set of fresh, clean clothes, fresh out of the dryer, like chef's kiss. Like those are things that sometimes I think we take for granted that I would love everybody to have access to, regardless of where you live or don't live or how much money you have. I think people all deserve to have a hot shower and clean clothes.
I hear you.
Fresh pair of socks, you know, like changes everything.
There's
Now I
dignity.
need to get rich. Anybody want to give me $1 billion? I'll do all of these things. I'm not going to earn it. I can't earn $1 billion, not in this lifetime. But if anyone was just to give it to me, I would do good stuff with it. I promise you. I'd be the first ethical billionaire. I would be really, I mean, just one handout. That's it. I'll even call it a hand. It's one handout. Give me $1 billion. Let me see what I can do with it. Jeff Bezos, if you're watching, we're on Amazon. So Jeff Bezos, if you're watching, just give me $1 billion. I'll tell everybody it came from you and I'll do good things. I'll make you look good in the media.
And
Look
right
at
now
how
you need to
generous.
look good in the media. So yeah, Jeff Bezos.
Like,
So yeah, so hmm
holla at a playgirl. I'll do good things. The Jeff Bezos Diamond Delete shower bus. Call me. I know you have my phone number. I know you have my phone number and my email address and my home address. You can send it to me anyway. I take Zelle, PayPal, Venmo. Venmo me $1 billion. I'll make it work.
and then and you'll start a, trademark war between Amazon and IHG, right? So
I
Holiday
know,
Inn. Yeah,
probably. See,
yeah,
billionaires ruin everything. That's why I never want to be one.
yeah, yeah.
Whatever,
There's a
whatever.
certain level of money where you pass the level of money where reality is just different. So yeah,
Yeah, whatever. See, never mind.
yeah.
You're killing my vibe, Carl. Killing my vibe.
Sorry.
It's all
So
good.
well, but it's what we were talking about earlier, coming back to the idea of just thinking about what we would do if we had money, but also that idea of making friends, connecting with people, right? Having
Mhm.
other people's thoughts, show up intentionally as something that you're doing, right? And so living with intention, it's such a huge piece, that we've talked about. And so that really directly applies to, when we're thinking about just in that coaching mindset, right? In that mindset of who we are to other people, and specifically as coaches, as leaders, and also as human service professionals, right? So, when you think of a coaching mindset, Tiff, what goes into that for you?
Well, as a newly minted ACC coach, because I did pass my test the second time, the coach that I did not fail twice. I don't fail twice. I failed once, but I didn't fail twice. I see a coaching mindset as being curious, open-minded, flexible. I added this one, non-judgmental and client focused. This is the coaching mindset. And what's really interesting for me about like when I translate this to like what does that all mean? Being curious, open-minded, flexible. Really again boils down to the getting out of your own way, right? Like getting out of your own judgment, getting out of your own experiences. And I think it's one of the like most generous gifts that we can give people is a coaching mindset, not just as a coach, but as a leader, as a professional, as a friend, as a partner, as a mother, like to really like let go of your beliefs, to really be open to understanding and accepting what somebody else is thinking, feeling, or their perspective. And so I know for me, this is something that I am consciously working on because um, I definitely can be judgmental. Which you know what's weird? Okay, most judgmental people don't even realize that they're judgmental. Can I just, as a parent, I'm going to just use my example as a parent. I really have always thought in my mind, and I'm saying I thought in my mind that I was very open minded and flexible and non judgmental. My kids don't think that. They're terrified of what I think like even seeing my son's first apartment, he was like showing me all his cool stuff and his apartment was beautiful and he was like talking to me about how like he was thinking about color schemes and whatever, and then even like his snacks, like I got this snack and I got that snack, and he was so worried that I was not going to think that his apartment was amazing, which by the way, it is amazing. It is wonderful. And I'm so proud. But I thought, like, what did I do to make him so nervous that I wasn't going to think that he was just killing it in life? And again, most people who are judgmental don't even realize how judgmental that they really are. So there are going to be some instances, right? There's going to be some places in my life that I'm always going to be judgmental. So if you're an ugly person, I'm going to judge you and I'm going to talk about it with my friends and we're going to roast you. We're going to roast you and I might roast you publicly into your face. So if you're an ugly person, remember I told you 2025, I'm going to be petty. So I will be absolutely judgmental with ugly people. Um, but in the rest of my life, I'm really, really trying to be more open-minded and making sure that there's not even the perception that I'm judging you because I don't really think I am judgmental, but apparently that's not other people's experience. So I'm very aware of that right now, and I'm really trying to change that dynamic.
Can I say something controversial?
Go for it,
Well, it
Carl.
might be controversial,
I mean,
but
it's a platinum thought. Go ahead.
there's your judgment, right? Your judgment showing, right? But we're all judgmental,
No,
all,
I know.
all, all the time.
I know.
Everything we do, there's a judgment in our mind of whether it's safe or dangerous, good or bad, right or wrong, comfortable, uncomfortable, familiar, unfamiliar. We are, our brain is constantly trying to keep us safe. And so we judge our environment and the people that we interact with every single moment of every single day.
Right.
Now, what you said, trying not to be judgmental is the move. Trying not to be judgmental is the aim, where we recognize, oh, that person, wow, they got a little too much energy when they say, "Hey, good morning. How is everything?" Wow, they got a little
Yeah.
too much energy. Should I be wary of them? As opposed to, wow, they have a lot of energy. That's different than how I usually start the day. So,
Right.
okay, let me
Right.
learn more about that person, right? I mean, the little things, and it shows up. It shows up all the time. We profile people within 7 seconds of seeing them.
Yeah.
Right? We decide if we want to hire somebody within 21 seconds of meeting them. That's just a handshake and a good morning
Yeah.
and how they're dressed, right? And then we go on a confirmation bias. The rest of them, oh yeah, they answered that question. I knew they were the right hire. Oh, they answered that question with the right answer, but yeah, they seem a little sketchy and shady. I don't really know if
Yeah.
really where did they learn that? Someone must have taught them that, right? And so we do that unconsciously, subconsciously so much that if we don't recognize and admit that we always are judging, we can't be aware of what we're judging at what time. And so I'm hella judgmental. I am a judgmental person from the moment I wake up to the moment that I go to sleep. And I say it with no sense of shame or blame because I'm going to say another controversial word, woke to the fact that I do have judgment and that it affects how I interact with people if I'm not careful.
Well, yeah, and that's the part. So I agree with you. I don't think it's controversial. I think it's science. We're all biased. We all have preferences. We all have judgments. We all have things we think are right or wrong, safe or unsafe, normal or weird. Like that's part of being a human being, right? Where I want to be cognizant is that I want people to really feel that they can be who they are authentically. And it can be different from what I am, and it can be different from what I believe. And I still see you, and you can fly your freak flag as high as you want it to go in my presence, and you will get no pushback from me. That's where I think that my awareness needs to continue to grow is in that again, we're always going to make judgments. You're absolutely right. So someone might say something, I'm like, okay, in my mind, that's interesting. I would not have thought that way. but I want to get into the space where people don't ever think that I think that they're wrong if we don't agree with each other, because I have my perspective and you have your perspective, and I have my lifestyle and you have your lifestyle, but it's not for me to judge. I get to decide what I do with my life, and you get to decide what you do with your life, and that's the freedom that we've been given. And it's no, I have no voice in what anybody else chooses to do, with the exception of people who are going to be ugly to other people and infringe on their rights. Then I'm going to judge hard and fast and ugly. So I'll meet you there.
Like, one of the problems with judgment, because like you mentioned, and I mean, it's a neurological process. We are constantly trying to stay safe, right? That's what our brain wants us to do. And so we may have declarations, we may believe things, and our brain counteracts those beliefs. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, I traveling around helping people get showers and laundry, and I had somebody who was in a class a couple months ago that, that works with unhoused people. And she said, I wanted to work with the homeless. I wanted to, be part of this program. And then my first day when I walked into homeless camp, I walked out terrified, and I had to, and I didn't go in. And, I avoided that place for a long time. Right. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because her her heart and her beliefs were that, I want to help these people, but her brain was saying this is not a safe environment,
Right.
right? And so our judgments counteract our sometimes most deepest held beliefs,
Yeah.
and we take it personal. Our brain wants us to take it personal. You're in danger. This is uncomfortable to you, right? You ever had that response? I wasn't raised like that. That's not how my parents raised me, right?
Yeah.
And
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's a judgment of telling that person that you're wrong because you are not acting the way that my parents. So we take that personal. All judgments are personal, right?
Very
And
much so.
and I mean, there's good judgments, things that keep us safe, right? There's certain places in life we probably shouldn't frequent without, more people, and I don't want my daughter walking around, downtown at night without her friend or without on her phone, right? Or not being on her phone or just even walking out in general, right? Why are you out running the streets? Think about that, right?
That's my favorite thing to do. I run the streets. That's my
Right.
best hobby.
Oh, you're out there in the streets. I don't know how many times I hear that, but just thinking about that idea, we take those things personal. Now translate that to a coaching engagement,
Mm-hmm.
uh, a one-on-one leadership session with your direct report, a client meeting with a client in your caseload. What if somebody says something that you're not familiar with or that you think is not correct, and not in terms of the procedures, right? What if you have a worker who, I mean, a direct report who, like, here's an example, perfect example. I was working with the state agency last year, and one of the people said, my direct report, I can't stand my direct report. I was like, why? Well, because he always waits till last minute to get stuff done. And I said, well, okay, well, what's the expectation? That he gets stuff done by 3 o'clock. Okay. And what is he doing? Well, he gets it done. It's just he waits till the last minute, and it drives me nuts. I don't know how he does it that way. I have to start at 9 o'clock and make sure that everything gets done, and I see him doing other things or maybe not doing exactly what I thought. And so I don't understand it. And I think it's wrong. And, he's going to fail one of these days. He hasn't failed yet, but in her mind, because he's doing something in a way that's different than how she does it, it is doomed to fail. Is that's the textbook idea of we take things personally. You're not doing things the way that I would want you to do it. So it's wrong and it's
Mm-hmm.
going to fail. And so I have a negative mindset about you already. And that's going to color every conversation, anything you say to me in my head. Yeah, but they're not doing it right. If they did it the right way, then probably wouldn't even have to have this conversation, right? Things like that.
Mhm.
And it's such a powerful pull because it's a natural pull that our brain wants us to stay safe and wants us to predict behavior. So we have to trick our brains intentionally by trying, like you mentioned, I want people to feel comfortable. I want them to feel like, they don't have to worry about if I'm judging them right or wrong, right?
Yeah.
And which, if we recognize that we judge people right or wrong, and then say, okay, so I'm feeling a certain way about this, but why am is that that's my way? What's their way?
Yeah.
Right. And that's what coaching's all about. So rather than, you know, we'll talk about client centered. What does it mean to be client centered? What does it mean to think about the client, the person, your direct report, other people as subject matter experts, right?
When I think about being client centered, it really comes back for me in my mind. Again, the way I'm embodying this coaching mindset is what do they need, not what do I want from them.
Mm.
And in any capacity, whether it be in coaching, leadership, human services, personal relationships, whatever that looks like for you. Um, like I really want to think about like what is my role in this person's life? What is my role in the problem solving? And I don't want to want something for somebody that they don't want for themselves, right? So um the other part of this, going back to one of our very first episodes when we were talking about the drama triangle, is that I don't want to become either a persecutor or a rescuer where I decide what somebody else needs to do to solve their problem. I want to be surrounded by people who are capable. I want to be surrounded by people who are empowered. I want to be surrounded by people who can solve their own problems and have capacity and knowledge and skills. And so when I think about it from that perspective, when I'm being client centered, it really comes back to what do they want for them? How do they want to solve that problem? And I really have to remove my needs out of it. As much as I want people to be independent, sometimes they need support. As much as the time I want people to be capable, sometimes they're lacking confidence. So I have to be willing to meet people where they're at and not have this like predisposed notion of who they should be or where they should be or what they should be capable of at any point in time. Being client centered is really focusing on what their needs are and not guessing or assuming or deciding what their needs are, but really being open to asking, what is it that you want? What is it that you need? Where can you get that support? What do you need from me? And just again, meeting people where they're at. If I have a goal for you, like Carl, what I really want for you is to get to Diamond Elite. That may not be something you want for yourself. I mean, we know you are one day shy of it, but I don't want to make the assumption that that's as important to you as it might have been to me, because that's not being client centered. That's being self centered, right? Self centered. And nobody wants to be called self centered, except for maybe the Kardashians. But other than that, sorry, Kardashian, someone had to tell you. So, I mean, client centered, um, from a coaching perspective is really just spending that time to ask people like, what do you want to talk about? What outcome do you want from this? What are you willing to do? What's getting in your way? Like really putting them in a position to reflect and grow in their own situation. And I think for me, from a leadership perspective, is really considering the needs of my staff member or the person who I'm leading and what they want and what they need, and keeping it individualized, because a lot of times we don't just say, oh, we lead one person so we can cater everything to one person. We oftentimes have a variety of people on our teams that all need something very, very different. And so being client centered in that aspect means I can individualize my support and I can individualize the way that I lead based on what that person needs and not just my own preference, right? My own preference. Like as a leader, I am like managed by exception. Basically, that just means I'm not going to bother you unless you need something from me, right? So if you got a problem, come to me. But other than that, I'm going to let you live your best life. And as long as your work's getting done, I'm not going to bother you much. Um, but some people need more than that. And so some people need the regular connection. Some people need me to check in on them. Some people need maybe a list of what's priority for me. So I can't make the assumption that my preference, which by the way is how I like to be led, leave me alone and let me do my job. And if I need you, I'll let you know. So if you are micromanaging me, then that's good. You're going to get the opposite of what you want. But I can't assume that what I need is what everybody else needs. And so I have to be open-minded enough, and flexible enough to be focused on what that person needs. And I think this even digs deeper into this idea. I don't know if we have time or the bandwidth to cover this today, but the idea between equality and equity. When I'm thinking from a perspective of equality, everybody gets the same thing. But when I'm coming from a place of equity, people are getting what they need, and it may be very different. And so, as much as I want things to be fair, and as much as I want things to be, again, equitable, I come from that place of equity that I'm going to meet you where you're at and try to give you what you need. And it may not be what the next person needs, but they're going to get what they need as well. Hopefully, if I'm doing it right, I can make space for everybody, even if it's different.
That makes me think I had a conversation earlier this week um with some fellow coaches, and somebody, one of the leaders of a coaching organization, they were talking about the idea of belonging and how
Mhm.
important it is we want people to feel like they belong, and so we want to create an environment of belonging.
Yeah.
And so they asked what our different perspectives were, and I said, well, the thing about creating belonging is that you can't create belonging.
Hmm.
You can't make somebody else feel like they belong. You can create an environment that allows them to feel like they belong, right? And that's and different people have different needs, like you mentioned. It's equality versus equity, absolutely. Not everyone, everyone, we're treating everyone the same. Well, are you treating everyone the same, or are you just giving everyone the same resources? Because if you give everyone the same resources, the person who doesn't need as many resources, you know, gets extra resources, while that person who needs more resources don't get enough, right? And so, that's the thing. I did, and I mentioned, with the idea of belonging. I mean, there might be trust issues where people aren't quite sure that you have their best interest in mind, and it has nothing to do with you.
Hmm.
It might have everything to do with how they were raised, their previous relationships, their previous bosses, their previous workplaces, right? Where we all learn and we take in information and store it in our subconscious. And then when we come into a new environment, and I share this all the time. I've taken over programs where somebody's, they've had 5 bosses in the last 2 years. So there's no consistency, no idea of this person's going to be here. They're going to support us. They're going to do the right things. And so it was up to me to show them that I was worthy of them feeling like they were supported. I can't make you feel supported. I can create actions and
Hmm.
ask questions that lead to you feeling supported, heard, listened to, being empathized with, understanding. I can do that. And you can still not trust my motives. I get it. But I'm not going to take that personal. I
Right.
but how many of us do? I've done
Right.
everything to make you feel like, you're equal. And why aren't you treating me, because there's how many people have had broken promises in their lives, right? And
Hmm.
or have had bosses say, "Oh yeah, this is the way." We were just having that conversation this week, in Fresno. Well, you know, how do you create a culture of trust and inclusion when, you know, it hasn't always happened, even though how many different managers beforehand have talked about, I want you to feel like you can trust me. And then they go behind your back, or they don't give you information, or they don't tell you why things need to get done.
Mm.
Right. And so, if we say we're going to do something, the way that we can help create that environment is to be consistent and have integrity and practice what it is we want to happen on a regular basis. And then it's up to that other person to say, I feel like this is a safe place. I feel like I'm comfortable. I can let my hair down. Right. I know people who are in, uh, you know, levels of management way beyond our pay grade that will be in, there's specific rooms that they're in where they will not speak up, even though they have tons of influence. And sometimes it's just, last time I spoke up, they took away this funding from me. Even if it wasn't associated to the speaking up, the funding being taken away, our brain's drawing a direct line because of the lack of trust, right? Or, if I say something that's maybe, you know, um, takes us to a different place. It's going to be longer. People can't wait. They get frustrated. I see how people roll their eyes because I'm always the one coming up. I don't know how many times have you heard this, Tiff? I'm sorry. I always have to be the bitch. I don't want to have to be the bitch. Why do I have to be the bitch? Right. And it's because that person identifies something that maybe isn't logical, isn't rational, and so they're going to speak up. But then other people are going to be like, "Oh, why are you going down that rabbit hole? Nothing will ever get solved in that way, and you're just wasting our time." Right? And so those people who point out, inconsistencies are often the people that are called the troublemakers when the inconsistency is the trouble.
Right.
And so as social beings, we want people, we want homeostasis. We want to feel comfortable and safe in an environment. So there might be some things that we feel like we need to call out, but we don't because we just want to keep the peace,
Hmm.
right? And that contributes to it further being an issue. And so trust is just like with allyship, right? Oh, I'm an ally. I do all the marching and everything else like that. Cool. Well, when you're done with the marches, you take off your hats, you take off your shirts, and then you can go about your life fitting in with everyone else. Meanwhile, those people that you march with, they don't get to take off a shirt or a hat because it's them,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so how do you show them that this is not just a situational thing?
Hmm.
How do you show up for people? How do you show up for causes in a way that is not just situational, how it's a lifestyle, it's a choice that you make, that you commit to. This concludes part one of our episode. Stay tuned for part two, coming Tuesday to all major podcast platforms.